What's up, Minuteman? Welcome to the channel. Let's talk about the movie Warfare. I went and seen it last night. It just released, and I want to talk about how it's not exactly what you expect out of a war movie. I was actually fairly surprised whenever we went and seen it. I actually took my family along with me to see it because a lot of people were saying like that's this generation's Black Hawk Down movie. You know, that was something whenever I was a kid. It come out right around when I was about 13 years old, and I went to the movies and seen it, and really had a big impact on my life. And I'm sure everybody else has a story about how it had a big impact on theirs as well. But I went and seen this one, and that's the one thing I want to say, like going into this movie, that you should know is it doesn't have all the fluff. It doesn't have all the crazy character development of a movie, and I'm kind of thankful for that. And it actually stands as a pretty good film to go see as a Minuteman, as somebody that's into preparedness, you know, something like what we do here on the channel. And as you can see, I'm wearing some ACUs just to throw out tribute. I like this camo pattern. I know a lot of you don't, a lot of you hate it, and I know it's kind of useless, but it's kind of like, you know, the desert night camo. It's a vibe to me, and I think it's going to come more back in vogue. But that's a little ADD rift there. You're going to get those here. That's just kind of the way this channel rolls. And so back on the movie Warfare, it is not your typical warfare movie. Like I said, it kind of just starts with the op and ends with the op. Something I appreciate about it is that, you know, kind of lack of character development, because I feel like a lot of movies, and especially war movies, can kind of get caught up on the main characters and the dramatization. And I mean, that's fine, but this is a movie that is based on real events from the people that were there, like from quite a bit of the people that were literally there on the op, and it's just going by memory. So there's no romanticization of war. It's not even a political statement at all. I mean, there's some questionable choices made in the movie, and you kind of understand why the choices were made because you're there, and that's something that I like. And don't get me wrong, I love action movies, I love things like that, and I love when it's fictional, but I hate when they take, you know, something that's historic and kind of just make it completely fake. Kind of like how a lot of video games are doing now. You can go and check out Ray Mendoza, which is the writer, you know, the podcast that he's on, and talks about, you know, the situation and stuff that he was in. Definitely do that if it interests you, you know, that whole scenario. And I believe he was in SEAL Team 5, which it doesn't even go over that in the movie exactly. Like, you kind of catch on that they are SEALs, and they're embedded with Marines. And like I said, I'm not going to give away plot elements or things like that, but it does a very, very fine depiction of the chaos of war. And especially, and this is where I say that Minutemen need to go and see it, especially the ones who are serious about this stuff. It does a very good portrayal of urban combat, and it doesn't have the sexy CQB, you know, clearing corners and doing stuff like that, and like, you know, there's 3 guys and they're taking down a whole army embedded inside of a building. No, this is not that. This is the true urban warfare, like not where you're quick in and out, you know, doing raids, stuff like that, Call of Duty. Those are very small elements of what happens in warfare. Most of the warfare is like what happens in this movie, where guys are going to go up, and like you've heard Jocko talk about it in his experience, and many others like Sean Ryan, like especially with sniper teams. Jack Carr's talked about it with a lot of his content, and it's like where they go in and set up in a building and provide, you know, sniper overwatch over other guys that are conducting raids, or they're just straight up conducting surveillance and watching some of the bad dudes out there. That is where stuff like urban warfare is going to come in, and it shows you, even though, you know, it's the big tough American freight train of, you know, the military powerhouse, it shows you that how they're still vulnerable, how these guys were vulnerable there. It shows you how the guerrilla warfare worked, and, you know, even though these guys were trained, and in some cases, some of them were tip of the spear, they still didn't know what was going on. They still had to react to contact and everything else, and they were in an unknown area. So I'm only going to say it one more time. You should go, like if you are a Minuteman you should go and see this movie. You should put it in your calendar, in your timeline or whatever, to go and see it and get eyes on it. And it's very different. I will say, like, there's no music score or anything. Like, it's very cut and dry about what it is, but the acting and the there's not really much inaccuracies with the weapons and the firearms and things like that. It's pretty much down and dirty. Like, it's done right, in my opinion. So let's switch into the Minuteman aspects that I take away from it. And like I said, I'm going to try to do this without any spoilers, like throughout the whole talk here about my little movie review or whatever. The thing that's eye-opening here is the urban warfare. And like, you learn more of how it's going to be. You learn more, like, you think that the SEALs and the guys like that are going to be powerhouses and take the cake. And it's when you have an unknown amount of enemies, and this is where guerrilla warfare comes in. And see, this is what it drives me nuts with all this sexyism of the CQB warfare and close quarters combat, because like the movie shows, that's such a small finite part of it that you really need to know how to operate in towns. You really need to know how to read maps. You need to know how to set up in a good area where you're going to have vantage points and cover and different things of that nature. But it shows you how much the American military relies on each other, that there's so many moving parts that they have to stay in constant contact. And anytime some of this stuff is broken, all hell can break loose. That's generally how lives can be lost. You follow along? And so you can kind of look at this from both sides, and it doesn't like sit here and romanticize the killing of Iraqis or anything. So don't, if that's not you want to be political about it, it's not that at all. Like, you can kind of just take it being set in Iraq out and still apply this anywhere else. And I'm going to go as far as to say not much has changed in the way our military operates. And so there's a lot of things you can take away here if you want to be a preparedness individual. Things like, the networking and the things that the guerrilla warfare guys do there, and like how it's very hard to track down, and they're mainly doing things by the old ways, and how a lot of the insurgents, I guess we could call them, it's still guerrilla warfare. They're doing things the old ways. They're not exactly using latest and greatest communications, because yes, they didn't have access to them, so it was a lot of meet and greet type stuff going on. And you just had surveillance, and you almost, in a lot of ways, you couldn't even tell what they were saying or talking about. It's just IDing the key players, right? And this is here or there of the movie, and it's something that I feel like we romanticize Navy SEALs and Delta Force and all these guys whenever they perform very special and specific tasks. And it's an upcoming video that I'm putting together too. It's where we need to shift more towards things like ODA and guerrilla warfare. The thing is with a Minuteman, if things were to go to hell here and the Russians were to drop tomorrow or whatever, the cartels were to attack, and it's a Red Dawn type scenario. And I feel like that term gets used a lot, but we'll use it for lack of a better term. Say there's an attack on the U.S. We're still not going to have the logistics of the U.S. military. That's not going to be a thing. That's not going to be an option. And that's why, even on the home front, guerrilla warfare is going to be the answer, period. Different battles and things that have happened throughout the years, from World War II, Vietnam, and on, all the way up to the GWOT, and something remains the same through all of that. The guerrilla warfare is effective. When you don't exactly know who your enemy is, and you only know whenever it becomes kinetic. You know some of the players, but you don't know who all's playing the game. And so things like that only come about whenever things get kinetic. And that's how they win. They have the local population on their side. So if this was to happen in America, some type of attack situation, of course the population's going to be on your side. If you're willing to fight and not go out and be a warlord and kill all your own people, and you're willing to round up people and train them, that's another big thing that we're going to talk about in this video. So you may want to like and subscribe and sign up for whenever I drop a video talking about things like this, because we do fun shooty stuff, with our nice little 10.5. I don't have my suppressor on today, but as you can see, this guy is evolving. It has been evolving. Still one of my go-to guns. It's light, compact, easy to get in and out of a vehicle. If you like stuff like this, you may want to like and subscribe. And we're trying out a battle belt here. Got some first aid on it. Sidearm, more or less a pistol belt. If things like this catch your eye, like I said, you might want to give us a follow. Other big key takeaways of the movie is, like, gunfights are not always going to be cut and dry. It's going to be confusion, massive confusion. Things are going to happen that rock your world, and it's like what they talk about. You're going to go down to whatever your most, ran in training is. That's what you're going to default to. And things are going to be harder to do that are super easy to do, under calm training, and even, getting that heart rate up and doing some runs and getting your stress rate up. Still going to be kind of easier versus when things are going on and people's lives are on the line. So keep that in mind. That's why training is important in reinforcing these things, because whenever things are going on around you and bodies are dropping around you, things that you can do with ease right now when you're calm, you're not going to be able to. It's going to be very hard to keep a clear head. And that's one thing I'm very thankful that the movie does portray. It did a very good job of conveying warfare, in my opinion. I'm not experienced in warfare, but like I said, I'm not going to call myself any kind of expert or anything, but I've talked in person and listened to a lot of podcasts, a lot of vets, and I think a lot of them are going to appreciate this movie. It's going to come out more and more how much they appreciate it. And like I said, the key here is looking at this and looking at experience of the GWOT and learning from that, learning what works on both sides. Like, you can't just sit here and imagine yourself as an American soldier if you're not. If you're a civilian, you're not. If you're a civilian that's going to be conducting ops against some kind of opposing or, imposing force, invading force, something along those lines, you are more or less going to be a guerrilla, because you are not a nationally recognized force like the U.S. Army. So let that sink in for a second. You're going to be a guerrilla fighter. You're going to be a resistance fighter. So you need to learn about resistance and guerrilla fighting. The American Revolution, more or less guerrilla fighting, unconventional warfare. That's what defeats these large invading forces every time. Every single time. Think about that. So don't be surprised if you see the channel drifting a little more to talking about guerrilla warfare and things of that nature. And there's a certain group in the military that's related to guerrilla warfare, and that's one of the videos that's coming down. I've got to get the rest of it filmed and put together, and you're going to be seeing it drop. But we also got some more gear reviews and things like that coming too. So stay tuned. Go out and see the movie Warfare. It's very well done. If the algorithm brought you here, then you're definitely some sort of like-minded. We're definitely on the same wavelength, if you catch my drift. And so you definitely need to go and see it and get an idea of it. And let me know, drop in the comments if you've seen it. Let me know what you think. And this is XXL Dude telling you that resistance to tyranny is obedience to God.